With myself, cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations with myself, cause I feel like I have nobody to turn to. Everything was green light, now we got the red. Could've had somebody else choose you instead. I be having conversations with myself, cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. Got up in the morning, took a shot, that's the right. And girl, you left my stomach in a knot. Took my lighter and you burned the bridge. Thought you was a writer, no, you just an idol.
Good night, people. I'm back at the request of Miss Dahlia. I suppose to say Stapleton Poet, I say Poet. At request of Dahlia, for the most part. I was excited the other day in the garage by the topic that we're gonna discuss tonight and the actual conversation that we're gonna have tonight. I was excited by it, and she told me, you know, you should have a show. Forgive me. I was trying to send out one or two links. I apologize. I'm back with you 100% now. And Ira, by the way, I tell you, a minute does go by fast. But anyway, we will be speaking this evening about fair share, and particularly the discussion between the AG and Juney Liburd. I would like to explain why I think that you should give this some of your time in going through the history. And I tend to go through the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. I would think that this issue, the fair share issue, and maybe even secession, are gonna be central discussions in the upcoming election. And I think, therefore, that people should be informed. And particularly, some people may have even missed the interview. But I think that you should be informed in a manner whereby we could kind of stop it and slow down, and I could speak, and you could possibly interject as well. Ira, make sure the comments are on, sir, in case anybody out there has any differing opinions that agree. But the central task tonight, as I say, never mind it is two Kittitians. The discussion that they are having is pertinent and affects Nevisians. And I also feel like the federal election is important as well. And so hopefully the understanding of these issues gives people a greater understanding as to why the federal elections are as important as the local elections. Hopefully you are enlightened. Hopefully maybe I am enlightened as well as we go through this conversation. One other thing I wanted to say, I was looking at the poster, and the poster said we're going to be breaking down. I want to consider it a discussion about the Constitution. And I hope that some of these conversations, because I am proud that some of the conversations we have had before have made it to the media, and that the media has inquired of the matters and pushed certain things forward. Certain things have been asked by politicians of all parties of questions. And I think that the more pressing thing is to understand that the show is for the people. Because as I say, these people now can ask the right questions after being informed about what is really taking place in St. Kitts and Nevis. So Ira, now, sir, you may begin as we
Person of the
look at the
AG.
interview.
He's here, the Honorable Dr. Garth doctor? No. Not yet. Garth Wilkin, he's here. And we're going to be talking about fair share. We have some clips we're going to share with you as well, but the clips will come later. Let's say good afternoon to Garth. Garth, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Juney. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon to all the listeners out there all over the world.
And you know what strikes me about you being here today? I called you almost at the last minute. And you come, you're here. And that tells me a lot about you. And I'm glad that you're here to share with us what you have learned, what you know, because it's a wide reservoir of knowledge in that Wilkin head that you have there on your shoulders. Now, Garth, there's been a lot of talk lately.
Just a small pause to say that it is important, because I'm also going to examine this interview. How are we supposed to perceive this interview? Does Juney have journalistic responsibilities when he is asking his questions? He would have said that the AG came at short notice. So I do want to give the AG his grace for that in anything that he may have said that was underprepared. But in any event, I'm still going to say what I have to say. But just a small interjection as I continue.
About fair share. Everybody's sounding off on it. The term seems to have come in use in later days. I can't remember growing up in Dorset, Market Street and Macbeth and hearing fair share. Then the Prime Minister, the Premier was Honourable Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw, and even though they were Nevis was contentious. I mean, they always wanted to get something done because they feel like they weren't getting what they deserved. And we had Twin Island Federation, then it was also, Anguilla was also in the Federation, so to speak. But they
I want to pause here again, and tonight is going to have in some history as well. I love the fact that Juney Liburd is an elder, so we could hear some of the history. And I also think as we speak about updating our curriculum and moving away from European studies, that maybe we should try to incorporate something where there is something that is strictly St. Kitts and Nevis history. Because it is fascinating, and we will, once again, we're going to speak about the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly the political history, the political development of that history. As Juney mentioned, from since he remember himself as a young man, and you could see Juney head ball now. I could remember Juney relax. And from Juney is a young man, all he know, there has been a particular tension there. From what I have read particularly, there's always been a tension there between St. Kitts and Nevis, and we're going to speak about that from a historical perspective.
There's always the contention that these two islands, these two dependencies, if you will say dependencies in inverted commas, were not getting what they deserved, and St. Kitts was getting the lion's share. Even though this was not so, it seems so because we were the larger territory. But that aside...
No. Part of why this is also important for us as Nevisians, and I did this recently with the West Indies cricket team. I listen media from other countries, and I hear, and I want to hear how people from that country consider West Indies. So it's good that we could look as Nevisians and hear the conversation. And that is backed up, by the way, in some reading I have recently just passed on to Ira, where the perspective in St. Kitts is that they have taken on the burdens of Nevis and this perspective in Nevis is that we have never received the topic of the conversation this evening, our fair share of any resources in the Federation, particularly with St. Kitts and Joe. And you hear Juney say the same thing. Nothing malicious.
Tell us what, in your opinion, is fair share. Give us the legal framework, the constitutional framework for fair share, if you will.
Well, Juney, just to start by saying that, when you call, I have no problem coming on. I'm a servant of the people. So if there are any questions that need to be answered, and especially in terms of the law and the Constitution, I'm prepared to be on. But there's no term fair share in the Constitution. What the term in the Constitution that is used is revenue allocation. So when our leaders at the time, leading up to independence in 1983, came together and sat down to craft a constitution, naturally, the quote-unquote fair sharing of revenue was something on the table.
Right.
So the political leadership at the time determined how revenues would be allocated within the Constitution. And of course, Juney, the Constitution is the supreme law.
Right.
So
Well, I have to stop the age there, and I'm not gonna disagree. I don't disagree with anything that the AG has said yet. I think that he's gonna stop there with regards to the supreme law. I would like to tell you that that is in section 2 of the Constitution. I do agree with him. On top of that, I would like to establish that section 60 says that all members of cabinet are required to take an oath of office. And the oath of office, of course, which is in, I think, Schedule 5 of the Constitution, would require that person to uphold the office and to do everything. Listen, I think I need to read the part there specifically. I don't think that I need to leave that to chance. Schedule 1. No. I don't need to leave that to chance. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, our Constitution, as opposed to the United States Constitution, which is considerably larger. But I wanted to read the oath of office, in which I just had, Honey, would you like to help me? No. Anyway, my larger point, ladies and gentlemen, is that the AG has sworn an oath to the citizens of St. Christopher and Nevis to uphold his office, and he's correct in saying that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. That is going to become an issue later on in the conversation, but I just wanted to highlight that. And I think that he's going to go more into the revenue allocation aspect, which is very important.
I don't like to use the term fair share because that has political connotations, but I want to use revenue allocation. I just want to read it, if you'd allow me.
Sure, please.
It's not very long.
Go ahead.
So I'm sure there's some people that have not had a chance to read it. But this is what the Constitution says about revenue allocation. It says,
Also known as fair share.
also known colloquially, as fair share. It says, subject to subsection 2, which I will speak about as well, the proceeds of all taxes collected in St. Christopher and Nevis under any law shall be shared between the government and the administration being the NIA. And the share of each shall be determined by reference to the proportion between the population of the island of St. Christopher and the population of St. Christopher and Nevis as a whole, or as the case may be, the population of the island of Nevis and the population of St. Christopher and Nevis as a whole, as ascertained by reference to the latest available results of a census of those populations carried out in pursuance of a law enacted by Parliament. So let's stick a pin there. I just want to explain a few terms. Taxes is not defined in the Constitution, but the general term of taxes is defined by law as a charge, usually monetary, imposed by the government on persons, entities, transactions, or property to yield public revenue. We know what taxes are, right? If there's a law that requires you to pay the taxes, you pay the taxes, it goes into the public purse, those are what are considered taxes in the broad sense. Now,
Now, I want to stop here and to say that everything that the AG has said so far, I feel like is sound. Anything where you got to pay basically is a tax. All of the money. We are going to reach a point of departure, a point which is dangerous, which is where we're going to focus on the CBI money. But for now, all of what the AG has said is sound, and I agree with where he's going at this
portion.
point.
Latest census, we fortunately have a census which is only a couple of years old, and in which it was determined that we have a population of 51,320. 74% of the population resides in St. Kitts, and 26% resides in Nevis. So that is 38,138 in St. Kitts and 13,182 in Nevis. So if you plug those definitions and that data into this paragraph within the Constitution, it basically says that all taxes collected in the country as a whole must be fairly divided between the national government and the NIA, and it's based on population. So the question then is, how do you determine what amounts to the taxes, and also how do you determine what are the expenses of the state?
Want to stop you again? No. Up to this point, we do not have any points of disagreement. We have a point of confusion where he's saying we have to determine what are the taxes. We have a very public mechanism in place to determine what is going on in the government. This is the budget. And so there should be no mistaking as to what were the taxes collected. Up to now, we have not reached a point of departure. I think that the AG is going to move on to a pertinent point now, which is the expenses. And this now is where I think definitely there is a point of contention.
Because it's not just all revenue and then you split it. It's all revenue and then you look at what are the common expenses and you deal with that. So I go to subsection.
Recall, the AG is not making a differentiation. At this point in time, he is saying all revenue and then you take away the expenses. All of that is fair. Sound economics.
Section 2, it says the share of the administration under subsection 1 shall be subject to the following directions: a contribution to the cost of common services provided for St. Christopher and Nevis by the government, and a contribution to the cost of meeting the debt charges for which the government is responsible under section 75. The government may make rules for the purpose of giving effect to the provisions of this section, and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing power, any such rules may make provision for prescribing what services are to be regarded as common services, for determining the contributions to be made by the administration in relation to any common service so prescribed, for determining the contributions to be made by the administration in respect of the debt charges for which the government is responsible, and for prescribing the time at which and the manner in which calculations and payments, including provisional payments, are to be made. And the last subsection in that part of the Constitution, section 110, says that the powers of the Governor General under subsection 3 shall be exercised by him or her on the advice of the Prime Minister, but no such advice shall be given without the concurrence of the Premier. So we have a couple of factors that go into this equation, Juney. You need to first determine what are the overall revenues of the federal government as well as the NIA. Then you have to determine what are the common services. For example, the federal government is responsible for foreign affairs. So naturally, the expense of having missions and embassies and foreign officers around the world is a common expense. I don't think that's debatable. National security, that's a federal responsibility. So in hiring of police, hiring of the defense force personnel, what you pay for CCTV, etc., etc. Those expenses are...
I want to pass on the CCTV thing. I need to understand this is not anything controversial. I just would like to know. I've heard the Premier take a lot of credit for the CCTV. I just want to know if it's a federal thing. I just want to know if it's federal credit being claimed, because now the AG is saying, and it seemed to me it would be national security. So it wouldn't seem to me like it's any kind of... Anyway, but I just would like a little clarity on that. But I do not dispute any of the points that the AG has said as far as these common services being removed. I feel like all of that is sound. It's in the Constitution. Everything is
of the
fair.
National Security Ministry, which is a federal ministry, would be common services. So the question then becomes, what are the additional common services? So based on 110, revenue allocation, the section of the Constitution, you look at what's the total revenue of the Federation, NIA, and federal. What is the value of the common services? And then technically you're supposed to split that 74% as of now to St. Kitts.
Well, listen, I didn't even realize this in my first go through this. The AG said that we got to determine the other common expenses, and then now all of a sudden I'll be talking about the revenue. I thought we supposed to get some sort of further explanation of what are the further expenses before. But now I think is where we will reach a point of contention.
To the federal,
Yes.
and 26% to the NIA. Now this brings in the debate of persons saying, well, when the Constitution was drafted, it should have contemplated a St. Kitts Island administration. That's a debate we can have until there's constitutional reform, but it doesn't. So technically the federal government, which the cabinet resides on Church Street and is responsible for the federal government, and then the NIA, which is responsible for certain constitutional matters in Nevis. But that is what the Constitution says is what's to be done.
Now, I hope we have picked up on the tone of the AG changing card. Before, when he spoke like he was a law professor. And he tell you that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. All of a sudden, and this is where, because ladies and gentlemen, I have some issues with the AG. So I feel like this is going to be the start of my issues with Mr. Wilkin. Now he's saying that that is what the Constitution say supposed to be done, and not the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, which is he sworn oath to uphold. I find it out, by the way. I don't laugh because it's so close. But anyway.
What I gather from the discussions, not necessarily the World Bank report, which I won't go into detail because that is being...
Oh, and let me pass to, because he got to something that is important, and that also should be taught in our history lessons. The Labour Party did a green paper in 1982, which had in some good things and had in some other ridiculous things. But one of the things that I think would have been a good thing is that they asked that for it to be a federation, Sinkits need its own government. And I am a proponent. I always say one of the things that Nevis needs to bring to the bargaining chip, to the bargaining table, next time we want some type of constitutional reform, is that Sinkits need to get their own government. And the federal government, everybody who get elected from Nevis and from Sinkits supposed to be in the federal government. If you get elected, you're going there to work it out. That's the maths. Because for at least this group of people, this is the group of people who then now supposed to take on national security and all these type of things. They focus on the larger issues, whereas Sinkits government could take care of Sinkits, NIA take care of Nevis. It would work. But it is a point of contention ever since before independence, and Labour has advocated in their green paper that they need a government too. And they're not wrong.
Discussed by the two respective cabinets, so I can't divulge that publicly. And it will be at some point, but you have to give persons an opportunity, the decision makers an opportunity to digest this advice that has been given by an independent third party. Have those discussions and then now bring it to the public, and so the public can give their thoughts on that.
I just want to point out that the digestive system of the politicians in Sinkits and Nevis seems to be close to that of a large snake, maybe a crocodile. It seems like when they digest, it takes them all of 2 years, because they get documents in front of them and they tell you, well, oh my God, this one. Anyway, they're going to tell you that after Culture Armor is when they're going to get back to you. I don't know when we pick up this thing of getting politicians, we got to wait until music festival done and Culture Armor done in order to get back to the people, but we need to start to demand a little bit more from our public entities in those regards. Don't stop too long to digest. Part of the reason why we put faith in particular politicians should be their ability to deal with multiple things. When you are voting, these politicians got multiple departments, multiple ministries. They are always, that is the job that you sign up for. So, it shouldn't, I do feel like it is fair to give politicians room to breathe, but my God, we need to get, let the digestion system be more that of a human being, closer to that, and less that of a reptile.
But the Constitution guides us in terms of what is quote-unquote fair share and revenue allocation. It's not a simple formula, because the difficult task...
You notice the Constitution is guiding us now? It's not the supreme law. It's guiding us. We're supposed to be following that, ladies and gentlemen, as he started off and said from the top. And we need to be firm in the middle. Don't start off in the top strong and then get weak in the middle.
Which the Governor General must undertake after advice from the Prime Minister, after consultation with the Premier, is to determine what are those common costs, what common services as they are called in the Constitution, and determining how to allocate, when to so should the NIA collect all its taxes, the federal government collect all their taxes, and at the end of the year, you then say, okay, this is how much we've collected, these are the common costs, what is the net? NIA, did you collect 26% of the net? If you did not, then you potentially top them up to what is equivalent to 26%, or do you do it such that you do it every couple of years? There are different mechanisms that the Constitution contemplates. But key to that, Juney, There's never
Ladies and gentlemen, this is another point of departure with the AG. The AG has gone through the part dealing with revenue allocation, the part of the Constitution. I do not recall hearing anything about flexibility in terms of mechanisms and this type of thing, and maybe you could do it yearly, but then you could. I think maybe the AG is raising some points where he could say that these are some fundamental issues in the Constitution. And possibly when we are able to do constitutional reform at some stage in time, it should be a living document after all, that we address some of these little, because these are things that should be bipartisan. This is something more we should be able to say, okay, let me fix this little thing here so that we could know.
been an order, as far as I'm aware, by the Governor General under this section, which technically would be the fair share order, which is contemplated by section 110.
I just want to say, right now we're like 11 minutes in, and the AG who started off and said, I don't like to call it fair share, I call it revenue allocation. Juney don't talk the man into it, huh? He don't fall into the fair share bubble too. Mark Brantley, one thing you could buy, you could make a slogan. Fair share. You know, the game with that. With regards to the lack of no orders under the Constitution, I think that imagine one of the central, because I think that this is a very important aspect of the Constitution, the revenue sharing. I think that's one of the reasons why it was negotiated and they came to terms. And if politicians cannot keep their word to one another in St. Kitts and Nevis, when we look at us as the population, why are we going to believe that they're going to keep their word to us? Where it was, and y'all keep telling me about how good things was in the old days. Y'all used to talk about honor. We need to get some type of understanding. And this is also going to begin one of my other issues with the AG. No, I will not blame the AG for the fact that every administration so far in power has failed to comply with this particular aspect of the legislation according to the AG. And I used to hear people saying, "Happy use to do it, so happy, you got to come defend yourself too." Because according to the AG, nobody has ever, at any moment in time, complied with the order. Later on, he will be passed a note to say that the order was issued, I think, for the first constitution, but never complied with. Essentially, it's the same thing. This is not dissimilar to the fact that we have constituency boundaries commissions, and I can't tell you when last I see a constituency boundary report. Any legal, by the way, legal, if it is required changing of constituency boundaries. And remember, I'm not saying that you got to change the boundaries, but we're not even getting reports to find out what is going on, if there are any recommendations as such. So there are multiple provisions in our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, which are not being adhered to by men who, when you got to call the name, you got to say they are a rebel. Anyway.
3, which gives effect to the issue as common services, meeting of debt charges, because debts that are owed are some are local debts with the NIA, some are federal debts. But federal debts, for example, if you take a loan to set up a CCTV infrastructure throughout the federation, that's beneficial to the whole federation as a federal debt, then you have to consider that as a common expense and so forth and so on. So the Constitution contemplates what's to be done. It just has never been, as far as I'm aware, an order has never been done where the Premier and the Prime Minister have agreed on the terms of that order and how to share the common services and so forth. So clearly...
And ladies and gentlemen, I must say, I'm going to state, because I do not feel like it is proper to just state that you're dissatisfied with somebody. You have to properly articulate the reasons why. No. I am looking at the AG here well cut in his suit, not tie on, having a wonderful time. He is here. He is one of the highest legal officials in St. Christopher and Nevis. He is aware that there are constitutional provisions that are not being complied with. And he just sits there. And he just goes on with his life. And every now and again, somebody gets vexed and he comes and he tells the nation that we should have morals, that we should do better. And he just sit on here with Juney. And it is kind of astonishing that in St. Christopher and Nevis, you could be the AG and come on and freely admit, hey, man, you got constitutional provisions one we never deal with, we never study. In the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, everybody is guilty at this point in time. And I don't want to talk about what's been. I would like to know, how are we going to go forward? And this is why I always fight I saw things always been moved, especially when you're honorable and you agree to something.
The Constitution contemplates this is how it's supposed to be done. It was never done that way. Because if you look at the political history of the country, at the time when the Constitution was finally drafted, the NIA had significant political power because of the then coalition at the time. So I gave an example when I spoke, I think maybe last year on a panel that I was on with the Ambassador Sam, talking about referenda. We have a very strange provision, and when I go to the meetings discussing Constitution, I always tell my colleagues in the region, in order to change certain aspects of the Constitution, which require a referendum, St. Kitts and Nevis is the most difficult country to get a referendum passed in the region because the Constitution says that the referendum must be successful in St. Kitts and in Nevis. In other words, you must get...
Many want to hear the other words what he got to speak about. Mr. AG, of course the referendum has to be successful in Nevis. Otherwise, then St. Kitts could pass laws and he apply to Nevis just so. We got to get a little say anytime there's going to be a constitutional amendment. That's why I say, when we come to speak to St. Kitts about constitutional amendment, we have something to offer. And when you come to Nevis and you want to do a constitutional amendment, sir, you also must have something to offer. You know, I would advise you to do, Mr. AG. Go, you must know somebody with Disney Plus. Get a copy of Doctor Strange 2016 and look at the last scene when he went to Damamu and he said, Damamu, I come to bargain. And when you come to bargain, you better believe you got something to bargain. That's why it's to bargain. You ain't gonna come and just force any constitutional provision. Pantapa Nevis people. In the same way, Nevis people, of course, we can't come and force it on St. Kitts. This is where we actually have to build towards compromise. And by the way, as we're speaking about constitutional reform, you want to see I'm good. 66 is there. CCM would then have to convince Nevis people. You would have to be convinced that CCM have a mandate to convince Nevis people. But believe in your friend.
2/3 in St. Kitts and 2/3 in Nevis, not 2/3 of the overall. And that makes it extremely more difficult. Means that both islands, part of the federation, have to agree.
And by the way, the way how he making this so unique. If you're gonna do a constitutional amendment in America, it's the same thing. The states them got to go, the individual states and them, and when you reach a proper proportion, well then alright. But everybody got to go and say, this can be, well, okay, I think it's got in the population, and I'll be gonna vote for this, and we're gonna force it on Nevis people to vote. No. Come over nicely. Have a prime minister who come on Nevis and put our offices in Nevis and empower Nevis, and yeah, we could get there. But come to bargain
On something to this extent of 67% to get it passed. And that's the most difficult referendum provision throughout the Commonwealth Caribbean, for sure. So that might have been put in because of the political, I use this word loosely, power of the Nevis Island administration in the coalition at the time of independence. So,
well, to refresh the AG's memory, Labour would have been the ones who were first pro-independence. I think independence was first a big political issue in 1970. If I'm incorrect, it's 1975 for certain. It was a big political issue. Of course, it takes some time to negotiate these documents, to get constitutions in place, and to move towards the formalization, because you already start to speak to investors and all kind of people to feel out what is the situation, what could be done. I have not seen the initial Labour proposal, but everything that I have read lets me know that NRP was not in favor of the Labour proposal. By that time, Labour had done stop run candidates in Nevis for at least 15 years. In 1980, it would have been 2 decades they done stop run candidates in Nevis. And so, definitely, this is not if you know Mr. AJ. And by the way, I also got an answer to my question. I was always asking, why didn't we ask to be Anguilla? Simeon Daniel did, in fact, ask for us to be Anguilla. He did ask to be a dependent. And we were told by UK, there are no more dependents. There's no more Anguillas. There's no more Montserrat. All of that full out. You're either going to be St. Kitts and Nevis, or you're going to be Nevis by yourself. But that was NRP's position at that time. Listen, Daddy, you see what I'm saying? Buba come back with the same thing. No nation should write the constitution. I don't tell you so. Buba, let I share some documentation with you. No nation wrote our constitution. So. But anyway, one of most of the things that St. people are vexed with, the fact that there is 113 and only Nevis could secede, the fact that there is an NIA, the fact that ratifying the Constitution is so difficult. These are examples to let you know that there were voices in those rooms representing the interests of Nevis people who say, regardless of if Singles ain't secure government for themselves, we are going to secure autonomy for us. I feel like that story deserves to be told. It is very vital to the history of St. Kitts and Nevis and for the identity of individuals. We always tell people these things are important, but we need to speak about the fight that really went into these things. Just like America had their civil rights movement and their different movements, St. Kitts and Nevis has not been sitting still in a bubble. We did things and people were on the road protesting and doing all kind of things for the longest time, as we continue to do.
What they had the leverage, they had the cards at that time, and I've heard some people argue that the reason there's no St. Kitts Island administration is because of that same reason, and there's the power to secede is one.
Listen, I want to add a little more. You also must understand that in the 70s, even though Labour won in 75 and were pushing towards independence, Sim Daniel and Bradshaw did not agree during the meetings, the constitutional meetings that Buba said did not happen, and Sim Daniel did not attend, nor any other Nevis people. But in the letters and correspondences, they did not agree. There were even many ad hominems in those type of things. And then you must understand, Bradshaw dies the next year. After Bradshaw dies, Southwell dies shortly after that. After that, Limo still can't get no consensus with NRP. NRP to agree to a constitution with PAM, for the reason that NRP actually was in the room. So at least they get to talk. Think it's Labour been want to talk to NRP in Nevis about the issues and then go back to the UK. With PAM, at least NRP get to be in the room and have the discussions and be a part. And this is why in the white paper that was circulated in St. Christopher and Nevis, and which is why the Labour Party created the Green Paper. This is why the white paper was circulated and gave out the terms telling you that there will be a NIA and Nevis got autonomy. Bro, I am unsure what's the number, and I don't even know what the mechanism be for the Rastaman to call in. I can ask Ira if there's a mechanism for us to get a call, and I will let you know what mechanism we will be using this evening. Good evening, cousin. I just hear you talking about the Constitution and the AJ. Okay, we got 22 more minutes.
As well. So there are certain things that are one way or leaning more in favor of Nevis in the Constitution just because of the political history of our federation in the early 80s, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't say it as it being a negative, but it's
not just the political history. It is due to the negotiation of Nevis people who were in the rooms at the time. And one of the things that I discovered, Nevis didn't have that particular carve-out as far as like exclusive authority until 1983. We were not going to enter any kind of federation with St. Kitts unless there was specifically going to be an NIA. If it wasn't going to be that, from since 1983, we would have just been Nevis. It was Nevis, we having a government. And that's what we need to go back to St. Kitts and bargain with. So see, Mr. AG, I got something to bargain with. You want a government? You want a government, Mr. AG? Nevis could give you a government. And see, Mr. Premier, I give you leverage. Whoever run Nevis. See, I got leverage.
It's the reality. You have to. There's always political reality, as well as general reality, and that was the political.
Listen, sorry guys, right? as I said, we're starting to get to the point. The AJ is trying to make a distinction and tell you people that there is a difference between the political reality and the general reality, and this and that. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to know that the political reality is always informed by the general reality. So even if you want to make any kind of distinction, I need you to know if you decide you're going to go have a strike tomorrow. What you want to tell me? The general reality not going to affect the political reality. The general reality, that is why the people matter at all moments in time. The political reality is supposed to be to do things that are in the best interest of the people at all moments in time. Because politics is about the affairs of the people. So push the affairs forward. And please don't try to use words on there's a political reality and anyway. There we go. 22 more minutes of the
reality that the drafters of the constitutions had to face at that time. So, despite Nevis having the political power at the time of the creation of the Constitution, this revenue allocation section was created. So this is the guide, and no law can be contrary to what that section says.
Despite us having the political power that was created, once again, ladies and gentlemen, the provision directly deals with the reality on the ground. How much people there need this? I got 26% of the population. Cool. I got 74. The reality politically is always dictated by what's going on the ground. Anyway. And by the way, Mr. Ajimin, I say you stupid cat. Most of the things where you say pan the law, me with you. The fundamentals of the law, me with you. In the some instances. And we should all be free to, express our dissidence.
However, for the last 42 years this year of independence, it has not been followed. So the revenue allocation section has not been followed.
I see.
Look how he just says something. He's like, man, for 40, Mr. AG, wouldn't you like to be the AG? Who is the man who get us to follow these important constitutional provisions so that we could proudly say that the Constitution is indeed the supreme law of the land? Rather than to just... And Juney, lad man, I got him man there. I repeat there all the time. You like I say, your job sleep.
Very interesting outline there, AG. Appreciate you expounding on that. I have a thought that came to mind. Revenue allocation, that's what it is, instead of fair share. But in terms of, say, the CBI in particular, how is that, how do we go about that? I mean, because...
Before, you see, Juney is the one who causes confusion. Because I see the agent and say nothing about the CBI, a Juney. So Mr. AJ, I give you credit for that. You tell him how he's supposed to be. The last thing I want to say before we kind of move on that point is that by having a mechanism whereby the Premier and the Prime Minister have to agree to these common expenses, etc., before the revenue is split, we did not really need to involve the World Bank. We already contemplated that there needs to be an agreement between honorable men who stick to the agreements that they make because they are men of honor. We do that. And so there really doesn't need to be any input from a third-party organization. No, would dispute the Premier where he said a 6 farmer could get it done. But internally, we should be able to do this thing and it is contemplated for in the Constitution and should be done. Going on the bus. So you're going to a lot of football games, the place soon get colder.
As the Honorable Mark Brandy, the Premier of Nevis, said he wasn't getting his, quote, fair share of the CBI funds. What is your response to something like that?
Well, the question comes down to is CBI revenue a tax? Is CBI revenue a charge imposed by the government on persons, entities, transactions, or property to yield the public revenue? Some may argue, yes, it is.
Listen, this now is where, yeah, we got some temper now, okay? Juney is asking him a question. The man has already dealt with this. The man has already said that it is all revenue. Mr. AG, when Juney asks you, well, what happened to the CBI? Your answer is supposed to be that the CBI is contemplated because that is in all revenue. You can't come back now and make this thing an open question and say, some people will say this, some people will say that. And not only that, Mr. AG, you have a responsibility. Once again, you are one of the highest ranking legal officials. You can't come to stir the debate. Your responsibility is to bring clarity. Now tell me what people are say. Tell me what you are say. And tell me from some kind of authoritative base where I could go back and I could say, okay, according to this give this person the authority. This is where the information is, and let us be able to deal with this thing. And I stopped it even before he started to flail. Anyway, there we go, AG, flail.
Some may argue, no, it's not. But then that.
No, Mr. AG. This is my issue. This is my issue. You have this thing, sir. You got to bring accountability and clarity. Not tell me what some people say, because then this is how we get the mentality of just talking to your supporters and dividing the nation, rather than you coming out as a person with authority and telling us, hey, this is the standpoint. And this is why I'm saying you should have never endorse this question by Juney Liburd about CBI. CBI is accounted because CBI is all revenue. That's it. Anyway. Go ahead, fish, please.
That's where the discussion in the 110 subsection 3 should come in.
Right.
The Premier and the Prime Minister, which are the Constitution.
You see this thing about discussion? This thing ain't no discussion. This ain't no discussion. This done laid out. The discussion where they're supposed to agree is what are common expenses. And guess what? Guess what I'm gonna do for you, Mr. AG? In the common expenses, got to be how much ever I be pay for the CBI. That's what I say. This thing got to be included. We can't play no games. And by the way, because some people are like, well, bringing in this thing about non-tax revenue. If I really start to find out what is non-tax revenue, there are a lot of things they wouldn't necessarily call them a tax. But they're going to the government and we ain't playing the games with them, and CBI is one. So it is included.
Entities, it doesn't say the NIA and the federal cabinet, it says the Prime Minister and the Premier should come together, sit down in a room, and make a recommendation to the Governor General as to whether, first of all, that CBI revenue is considered tax or not. If it is not,
they ain't supposed to come to talk about no taxes. This is why, this is where the beef there. You see, I get hot now till I cool down. But this is where the beef there. Mr. AG, you got to be the man who bring in clarity. Ain't got nothing say that they're supposed to be the agreeing on revenue. Revenue mean every single dollar that is paid to the Singits and the Singits government in the treasury, all of that deal. You can understand me as a SK man. All of that deal. We want that deal. And when it comes to Nevis, yeah, we go bring our thing to you. But Mr. AG, please, there needs to be clarity. You're not supposed to be endorsing this because you yourself now are perpetuating this thing. And Lord, I really would like somebody to ask it.
Then you treat it in a certain way. Or you decide, and also you decide on what are the common services. I mean, always...
See, this is the age conflating. Is only the common services.
Comes down to what the net is, Juney. Because if you, for example, in 2023, I believe the CBI revenue was 600 million plus. That doesn't necessarily mean of that 600 million, 26% should have gone to the NIA because their expenses.
I thought so.
No, I'm just talking about generally. That's the total revenue.
Right.
But then the expenses associated with it.
There's a formula.
But the expenses with CBI revenue.
Right.
Marketing and so forth and other expenses, running the unit, etc., etc.
So all of that has to be considered.
Exactly.
All right, it's just about 20.
Another problem with isolating the CBI funds, ladies and gentlemen, is that in our wonderful governments is only our ministries and finances make money. So we can't isolate anybody else. We gonna owe in every other aspect. We're just trying to make it big enough for CBI to cover everything. And how long is that gonna last? There is no other ministry or department that does make money except the Ministry of Finance. That's floating everything. And that's why the Constitution say revenue allocation, and it say all taxes, all got to mean everything without exception. Unless it in the Constitution, it ain't gonna exception to, especially when you say all. It mean everything. If I buy a bucket of chicken and I tell you I'm going to eat all and it got 15 in there, that means you can't get none. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to eat all. Mine.
2 minutes after 2 o'clock. I wanted to play you a clip before we continue. This has it's a clip containing audio from the Prime Minister, the Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, the leader of the NRP, the present leader, Ms. Janice Daniel Hodge, and the former Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Joseph Walcott Parry. It's about 6 minutes long.
Right. Yeah, he went down to say in the background that he also thinks Singers never get their fair share. Total base, they are in control of the revenue, especially in the CBI money. Mark is concentrated on non-tax. Let me hear the clip where you got.
So I'm going to play that next, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Okay, Judy.
Okay. Let's give a listen, ladies and gentlemen, listening to issues right now. We have this clip, which we compiled and put together based on comments made by these personalities, these entities, these men and ladies in power in the Federation.
In office.
Sorry. Not in power. In office. I have to watch my terminology. All right, let's give a listen. Let's give a listen to this right now.
This administration, even though the ruling party in Nevis ran against this St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration, we have taken the pragmatic approach not to play petty politics, but to do what we can as a federal government to help the advancement, the real advancement of Nevis in energy, in international transportation, in other types of development. We have been there to assist Nevis and to help Nevis. So the question of fair share for us is inbuilt in what we consider to be one of the ethos of our governance when it comes to St. Kitts and Nevis relations. And so that too is fair share.
Fair share report, no consult.
No, me go pass. Yeah, me glad me go pass Juney. Juney, you see how bad me be? I reach the level where me go pass you. Who could ever think that would happen? But with regards to Dr. Joe, Dr. Joe, if this is such an inbuilt thing, all you got to do is follow the Constitution. If this is such an inbuilt, ingrained thing into the Labour Party, and we are the party of justice and we follow the Constitution, call up your premier who you support and have helped us in energy and international transport and all these wonderful things, and tell him, Mr. Premier, I think that we should follow the Constitution. And I want to be straight up with you, and these are the revenues, these are the things I think are the common things, and let's follow the Constitution rather than going about all this thing. Because the other thing about not involving these third-party organizations is less expensive. For the premier just got to catch a boat, or the prime minister got to catch a boat, and we don't even go catch a boat. Really, you could do it as a video conference. You know, you forward the particulars of where you want to discuss, and then how you do this thing from a video perspective and a digital age.
With the NIA, I can confirm that, and this is what has led us, I think, to questioning some of the numbers, because our people are not consulted. Which again begs the question, if you're trying to do something to solve a problem, why not engage and consult? Because our...
Listen, sometimes I don't know what to feel of this is in labor relationship. Cause sometimes I hear these little things and I see the tension. I realize that the election is in 2027. And these kind of remarks. But yet still I doesn't really see. It's a strange situation of where I see smoke and no fire.
People in the Ministry of Finance, all they made reference to in the report were budget numbers that they claim came from the budget. And I say they claim because we're having a difficulty reconciling the numbers. But there was no consultation with the NIA on this process.
He said he claimed and he explained why he's saying that that's a claim. But why would you use the word? The only time in a St. Kitts and Nevis when I be tell somebody you claim something, or when I be say you lie, you know another reason why I be say you claim. If I yours, I yours. But when I be putting in the word claim there, I be putting it in for a reason. And I don't see any reason to doubt the auditors in the same way how you just come and give me a budget and what me go say about the auditor. Me wait and me see the auditor report and me move from there, sir. But I feel like if we are going to insinuate anything or say any of the numbers are off, we're going to have to come with something concrete to say, well, come with your own thing. But even as yet, we haven't publicly heard what is going on yet. But if the report is in for months now, on such a sacrosanct issue, why are the Prime Minister and Premier still holding this report hostage? I do not understand. I would have said that it is insufficient to say that we have to wait until culture armor. Next thing I can say is, well, after independence, then Christmas gonna be a come and it's a new year again. And enough of those years pass, enough of the games are played, and then the bell ring and they ask for 5 more.
And I emphasize here, as I always say to my Kittian friends, I'm not interested in your tax money.
I hope that I have earned some grace. I don't think I have said anything concerning my Bradley. If anything, maybe you get a small job. And he was like Mayweather, he turned his chin, and that ended up in a nothing. Mr. Premier, you absolutely have to be concerned with single people tax money. As established from the very beginning, the revenue allocation is concerned with an allocation of tax revenue, sir. Tax revenue, sir. Tax revenue, sir. So absolutely you want them, and you would like it as your reasonable, agreed to, justified share. Come on, lawyer. Come on, man. We ain't gonna do it like this. You know what's in the Constitution, that thing you took an oath to defend? Were you concerned about the taxes and your responsibility, in particularly as my federal representative, is to go down there and seek to ensure that I get my just reward, sir. That's why we vote. Hold on. Why is the Premier complaining after the fact that he wasn't consulted? Why would a crybaby cry? I don't know. I'm shocked. I'm just saying, this thing needs to be handled. Mr. Premier, as I say, you are my federal representative, and your responsibility is absolutely to get our tax money. Anything that is due to us. And I just had a small thing here about what is non-tax revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, property income. So like income from public corporations, that is non-tax money. Sale of goods and services, administrative fees, government rental of government assets, fines, penalties, grants and aid. All of these are non-tax revenue. You want to tell me if Sinkies get $100 million of aid, we ain't all. Mark behaves like he represents his own interests, not the interests of the people of Nevis. Bye. Well, every man for himself, boy. I would not want to be on the Titanic with the G.
If the businessman in Tian is doing well and generating tax for the national government, for the government in Sinkis, more power to him and more power to them. Just like I want the businessman in Jessops to generate some tax for the benefit of Nevis.
In March of 2022, when the CCM was advancing the resolve or dissolve agenda, the Nevis Reformation Party would have made a submission to Prime Minister Harris and copied then leader of PAM, Mr. Sean Richards, Honorable Terence Drew, and Mark Brantley, that resolve and dissolve was not the way to go, that we ought to look at a collaborative arrangement where all members, all leaders of political parties could come together and discuss a revenue share bill that could then be advanced to Parliament and be passed. And that way, just as was done with the Citizen Security Initiative, where the Prime Minister invited all members of political parties and other stakeholders to be involved in trying to come up with a solution to the crime problem. I see the revenue share as no different, where all political parties should have a say, be invited to have a discussion as to how best we could bring a resolution to this matter. Of course, that communication was not given any consideration. And so we're back here in 2025. And I do believe that the issue of revenue sharing is not really at the core of the issues that we're looking at. I do believe that there are different agendas out there, because the same way that we could come together across all divides and look at the, try to come up with a solution to the crime problem, why can't everybody be invited to have a discussion regarding revenue sharing? And at the end of the day, no matter who is in government, you would have the revenue share bill that is enacted, and all parties would contribute to it. I don't think revenue share is any less of a national issue as the crime situation. It is no less an issue than the COVID-19, when all parties were invited to contribute to coming up with solutions. And the NRP would have contributed, we would have participated in meetings with the task force to give our insights as to how we feel we could best address the problem. We had meetings with the Premier as well, and of course our ideas were not in sync with his agenda, and so he's quick to say that the NRP did not provide any solution, but the NRP has always been available and ready to sit down and discuss matters of national interest, where we feel that we need to look at the broad picture and not just, who is in government, because who is in government right now, they do not have all the answers. And when we can all sit down and share ideas and come up with wholesome solutions, I think the country would be in a much better position.
The expression fear.
I kind of want to respond to Bro, because Bro, my response to you is kind of my perspective with regards to NRP. I do think that it would be responsible of the leaders in Nevis to consult. And I wouldn't even just say with NRP. To consult generally about the fair share from important stakeholders and community leaders generally. I do think that it is important to do that. Having said that, if you want a role and you want it to be from a legislative or parliamentary perspective, at that moment in point, Janice Iowa wins seats. I don't think that there's going to be any obligation on behalf of the government. As I said, I think that it would be responsible, but there is no obligation. This is why federal elections must be taken seriously, in my estimation.
Yes. We never used that expression between 1980 and 1992. And certainly Mr. Emery did not use it either. Something that came from Mr. Brantley.
So, what is your view in terms of, would this be resolved any time?
Do
you think so?
And I am not sure what the World Bank has suggested, because that has never been made public. And neither the Premier nor the Prime Minister has said enough for me to have an opinion. But certainly, you cannot continue two administrations or a federal government to the Nevis Island government and have this wrangling taking place. And apart from that, it provides a kind of advantage to certain politicians or political parties who try to exploit it by appealing to Nevision rancor and to Nevision suspicion towards Sinkits. In other words, fair share has been used as an election stunt to rile up Nevisians into voting for a particular party. And that really does not make too much sense because this is 2025 and the matter has not been resolved. The people who spoke about fair share were in a government, a federal government in 2015. As far as I know, the matter was never brought up in cabinet. That is what Timothy Harris said, anyway, Prime Minister Harris. It never was not brought up. If you campaigned on fair share, and we have to look into what they really meant by fair share, but just look at the expression. If you campaigned on fair share, why is it when you formed the government and you were part of a government of national salvation and you know you were an important part of that government, why didn't you bring it up in cabinet? Why did not you have the matter discussed in the House of Assembly? It was never discussed. So the question is, was the CCM party serious about fair share?
Those was Parry's views and the fair share aspect. Parry views when nearly made the Premier come out with information, come out and say he's gonna bang him off. At least bang him out the politics. So hold on. I don't even had much wrong with what Parry say. Parry just basically would have said that these things, which many people have been saying, at that particular moment of team unity, the best thing would have been to crystallize the Charlestown Accord, to make the Charlestown Accord law. It is not law because it is written by the Honorable Premier, or even spoken up by the Honorable Premier. We have to go through the proper parliamentary mechanism, so I don't even see nothing wrong.
And we are back here on Issues for Today. My guest is the Honorable Garth Wilkin, the Attorney General of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Garth, you've just listened to a clip which featured the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, the leader of the NRP, Janice Daniel, the Honorable Janice Daniel, and the former Premier of Nevis, Joseph Walcott Parry. Any comments?
A couple.
Yes.
Just to clarify something, there was an order. Remember I referenced to Section 1.
Originally, the Nevis had a bigger population, and then we had a mass migration of Nevisians down to St. Kitts. Well, bro, that would not solve your problem, you know, because as the AG would have said, when there are new leaders, then they would agree. And it is always based off of the population. So it is not what the population was in 1983. And then it remains there. And by the way, in case I realize me stuck, I realize me stuck now about 5 or 10 minutes too. As long as y'all can hear me, I suppose everything is fine. But the population being bigger at the time would not have mattered at this juncture. And also, I think you asked why they didn't negotiate for 50%. once again, it's a negotiation. When I'm negotiating and I say I want 50%, what am I basing it as 50%? Are you just saying that we are 50-50 partners without looking at any of the other circumstances? Charlestown Accord was a joke. It was used to win an election. Ma does not care for anything that will benefit the people, man. How you mean? Some of the things are going to benefit Nevis, going to benefit him.
10-3.
Yes.
There was an order at the start. It was never complied with.
Oh.
But when you look at how 110 is worded, I do not agree with the leader of the opposition party in Nevis that it's an all parties on deck situation. No. There's some things in the Constitution that are political in nature. And it says that the Prime Minister and Premier can prepare a order and send it to the Governor General.
Right.
Which means the allocation of revenue.
No, I had to pass that. The AG just made a statement, ladies and gentlemen, and he is trying to tell the population of St. Christopher, Nevis, and anybody in the power of his voice that only some things in the Constitution political. What I would like to ask the AG is if he could point out anything inside of the Constitution which is not political. I just need one. That's all I need. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Something's political. Well, he can reach down to something else while I should. But go ahead, Mr.
Can change with different administrations.
Correct.
And
so you don't see it as being all inclusive, invite everybody to come and let's talk about this.
I think the Constitution contemplates that there's certain political processes.
Right.
Right? For example, boundaries, it's a political process. It says who is supposed to partake. There's supposed to be a Governor General appointing a chair, leader of the opposition appoints two, government appoints two. Sit down in a room and figure it out. Right? There's certain processes that require everyone to be on board.
Right.
But there's certain processes that are political in nature. So, as former Premier Parry said, he made the point, well, you were sitting down.
Okay. You see what I mean? So the Boundaries Commission require both the opposition and the party in power to be involved. I want to tell me that the Boundaries Commission is not political. How is the Constitution and you are the AG? All of it is political. It can't be nothing else less than political.
At the time when you could have figured it out, because you were the premier sitting in a federal cabinet.
Correct.
So maybe that was, I agree with him, that might have been the most ideal time to present an order, because you should have been ad idem. In other words, your mind should have been able.
No, I want to. The age talking about unity, like I said, them not good now. Remember that us go on trips together and so no, don't forget all of that, no. Let we don't go on like this. This is not the most loving opposition what we ever seen in our life, no. And like the premier ain't got the prime minister number. Go call him. As he says, only the two of them got to agree and start to get this thing going. So let we don't make this thing feel like, well, only unity could ever do this. This could be done tomorrow, especially if we got a strong AG who gonna be pushing people, who gonna be saying the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and we swear oath and all them kind of things there. An AG with backbone. Yeah, we gonna back that kind of AG there. An AG who want to run politics. Them kind of age there. A 40-year-old and a 10-year-old went into a business relationship with both contributed 50% of the capital. is it right for when the profits are coming, the 40-year-old should get more than the 10-year-old? Well, first of all, bro, I'm not aware that if a 10-year-old can engage in business, so it's illegal. But to play along with your game, in that scenario, if both of us have put up equivalent capital, certainly the profits should be shared 50-50. I think that you would appreciate, however, that we would not be contributing 50% of the capital to our shared expenses. And in that scenario, we are moochers. We like Brahman. If you used to watch Martin, them kind of settings there. So, and that's why I'm saying, I feel like that's a good start, but argue for Nevis as to why Nevis should get 50. And let me see if I could start. Okay, I cannot envision a scenario unless the geothermal was popping where we could speak about 50.
To meet if you are sitting in a federal government as premier. So, maybe that point has some validity. I don't give a personal view on that. But what my personal view is on 110 reading it, is that you can have an order like we did at the beginning, which was never followed. And just to go through that order, I'll go through after I make the point. But there could be a different premier and a different prime minister and a different time where you sit down and you say, well, common services have changed, or the dynamic of financing of both countries have changed. Instead of doing it every 1 year, let's do it every 2, for example. Or let's do it every 6 months. The dynamics of the federation change. So any premier at one particular time can sit down and meet with any prime minister or exchange letters if they don't want to physically meet, and work out an order and say to the Governor General, sign it and say, Governor General, I am approving this.
Is the age aware that we just like email people and stuff right now? I only happy that he ain't say that they could fax one another. That would have been a disaster. But they ain't gonna exchange no letters neither. Ain't gonna be by text. But I mean, we have electronic means whereby we could do this thing, man, as I was suggesting earlier.
Section 110.3 order to deal with revenue sharing, meaning it can be changed when premiers and prime ministers change. So I don't necessarily agree it needs to be everybody in the room and figure it out, because it can change with the politics of the time, the political reality, the financial reality of the time. So I'll give you an example of the original one. The original one spoke about certain common services. For example, the cost of common services for the NIA, 10% of the Governor General, a proportion of the population for Parliament, a proportion of the population for defense, a proportion of the population for foreign affairs, for regional and foreign contributions, telephone, radio and TV, government printry, passenger vessel. You see, this is the time. Technical college, teachers college. Those existed at that time.
Yes.
So this order contemplated 10% was the responsibility of Nevis for the technical college and 30% for the teachers college. And then the others were proportional to the population. And then they spoke about loans. NIA was responsible for 5% of the JNF loan and miscellaneous development project. And so loans change. So technically, in an ideal world, maybe every time there's a change of premier or prime minister, such that one of the two are different, there should be a conversation about fair share, which is really a 110 subsection 3 order, which they send to the Governor General.
The Constitution being the law of the land, when individual players decide to make changes to the arrangement, are they disobeying the law? And should the AG look towards punishing such persons? Pearl, that's a very interesting question. One of the persons who happens to be infringing the law is the very said AG, and this is knowingly. I have heard multiple ministers acknowledge that they do not follow the Constitution. They follow the parts of the Constitution that they like, and they misinterpret and conflate other parts of the Constitution that they do not like. They do not even consider certain parts that they are active in. As, for example, we have a boundaries commission, and the leader of opposition puts people on the boundaries commission. Have you heard the leader of opposition speak about the fact that there's no meetings of the boundaries commission? There's no reports coming from the boundaries commission? The leader of the opposition is also supposed to be responsible for a standing committee in the Constitution, which is the Public Accounts Committee. Have you heard the leader of the opposition ask about the Public Accounts Committee? I have heard him recently say that just like this provision, it is something that has never been implemented in his time in office. He only boasts about the fact that he is the leader of the opposition. And this is one of the reasons why our politicians don't get gray hair, by the way, like US politicians. So actually, when they make it, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but this is why they don't get gray hair. Mr. Branley is supposed to be fulfilling roles on multiple boards and committees throughout the Federation and also regionally. You better believe that they go to the regional meetings. Anguilla, our Bahamas, our Trinidad, our Barbados. But when it comes to the internal mechanisms, we have discrepancies. And by the way, it might be why we need another chamber of government for these things that the politicians have shown us throughout the years that they have not adhered to. Maybe there needs to be a second chamber of government, possibly something representing more the people. And this chamber is responsible for these things that the elected officials have been neglecting from since the inception of the independent state of St. Christopher and Nevis.
Now, within recent times, we're hearing a lot about fair share. It's gone viral. I mean, everybody's sounding off on it and everything. But what I want to find out is this. We talk about dynamics of change and so on. Certainly, the World Bank report on the fair share arrangement for St. Kitts and Nevis is certainly catching our attention. But as you say, this has to be trashed out first at the governmental level between the Prime Minister and the Premier.
Yes.
But there's a loud clarion call for more involvement and to make something like that public. What are your thoughts on that? You don't have to comment if you don't.
No, I'm just sorry.
Okay. Before the ages speak, and this once again, this is what I'm telling her. The AG is an intelligent man, and this must be restated and restated. I had glowing words when he was appointed AG, because I have been told of the contribution he has to make to the country. Hold on, let me read this. Yes, so let me start there. Like someone else on the chat says, if we put in 50%, yeah, we should get 50% or contribute. Yeah, we should get 50%. Our contribution 50% will be in that scenario. Indeed, But you know, putting in 50, you get out 50. That's the deal. That's business. The AG has just been asked a question which people in the chat ask. Everybody wants to know. It does affect you. Well, what's going on with this report? How come the minister's still digesting? I think they had this thing from since March. This is going on about 6 months now. These people are digesting this report. And the AGs asked, well, Mr. AG, what is your opinion? You know what I mean? Produce an original thought to say what you think. Should the report be made public? That's it. A regular question, which even if the AG is late, you must be prepared for fundamental questions. Should it be made public? He got something. Let me take another pause to read this. To follow up with the question. So when Nevis started raking in lots of revenues from Four Seasons and from offshore banking, why did Sinkers try to make sure Nevis send that money down? To follow the law. That would be the reason why they would ask them to do that, to follow the law. And it is a collective thing. So even if you're telling me, even if Nevis was contributing 35% to the economy, you still would only be due 26%. And you also have to factor in, well, if there was a year where you weren't over that 26%, you're still going to get it there. So it is based on the population, regardless of those other circumstances. But to get back to the AG was asked, Mr. AG, do you think that the report should be made public? And the AG got to blow off. And this was one of the things. Juney, this was bad. You cut in front of your business. Your business is Freedom FM. We're going to make the report public when one of the SKN leaders can read it. Juney, your responsibility as Freedom FM. And this is where I would like people here. When these leaders go on these radio shows, are these hosts responsible for doing journalism? Is Juney supposed to jump in front of the AG, the Attorney General, who, my God, if anybody's supposed to be able to deal with what is the Attorney General? Should Juney tell the Attorney General that he does not have to answer? That this seems like it is a question that might be too hard. If he answer, he may get a punishment for answering this question? And is anybody concerned with the fact that the AG is asking, hey, should you be transparent? And the AG has to hesitate about this transparency? Let me see how long it's going to take the AG to answer this question. Should the report be made public? Which Juney done had to nearly dive in front of almost save you. Imagine you have a Juney a dive in front of you, save you.
Juney, I just giving that a thought.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister and the Premier are servants of the public.
Yes.
So, what the...
Listen, I want to say start off good. They're servants of the public, so it seems like we heading down the right track. Because we want to know if the public should know. And since they must serve the public, you sound good so far.
Public, who they serve, you see, it's difficult. It's difficult because...
Oh my God. You see her? Me say, oh my God, and my wife say, oh my God, the same time though. This is what me try to say. all of a sudden it get difficult. And I go watch, let me tell you something, as a body language expert, I go watch the AJ. It is very important when the glass is on and when the glass is off. The glass is on now. Let me see how long they're going to stand. All of a sudden, it get very difficult. Should, as the AG say, the servants of the public release the report that was paid for by the public, which is going to have an effect on the public? This is now a difficult question. I thought it was easy, but it get hard.
You remember, we are fortunate to live in a very...
No, you're not giving, Mr. AG. Are you hear all of them? Yeah. Remember, yeah. Mr. AG, you got to come clean. You got to be prepared for this, yeah? What? You better be prepared, because enough more report going to happen. And I'll be always going to be asked when we could see the report. So you need to have to, you answer for that. VAT sharing arrangement and revenue sharing arrangement were changed from the Nevis side, so authorities on Nevis are breaking the law as well. Burl Jones, this is my contention. And remember, VAT is a recent thing, I think VAT only started like 2010 or something like that. So that's a really relatively new revenue sharing aspect. But all administrations have failed to adhere to this particular provision. All of them. Laos.
democratic society.
Yes.
Where there are lots of different opinions on many different things. We're one of the most opinionated publics in the world, given our size.
So no. That's why I asked if that is his school children say he's quite close with the rumors, so I'm not surprised with his behavior. Look, well, if I listen here, he sound like you say as a body language expert, like after the first ball walk across, he just, he can't handle pace. Clyde, you know the settings. You know the settings. You could see when the feet nervous there after they get one cross the chin.
And population. So think about it from a practical perspective. Imagine a prime minister going to a press conference or a town hall in each constituency in...
Oh yeah. All of a sudden he started to tell everybody, we have a vibrant democracy and we have all kind of people who have all kind of opinions. I remember, no? The question is, should the report be made public? I got to continue tell her that as we veer off the road now from the question.
Think it's and saying, I've received a report, and this is, in other words, technical advice, and this is what the report is suggesting I should negotiate with the Premier about Section 110.3, a Section 110.3 order, quote-unquote, fair share. What are your thoughts? In each town hall, you're going to get 40 different thoughts.
This now is just a distraction. Because first of all, nobody send a winner scenario go look for the report. But the report, y'all made a spectacle and say you send it to the World Bank. So when you send it to the World Bank, automatically, by definition, Mr. AG, I pay for it. That's it. And you on public servant. And guess who I am? John Public. Guess who me be? So say, as my servant, who got me report for what me pay for. That's what my guy asking. We ain't in all the report. No, he want to say, no, he want to bring up hypotheticals of saying that So what you gonna do? You gonna have a town hall meeting for all of it, Mr. AG? Once again, we live in a digital society. Of course, you could put it in a PDF and send it out. How hard is it for SK to have its local government so we can stop calling SK government federal government? This will heal these problems. Indeed, I do think it will go some measure towards healing the problems that we do face at this particular juncture. Anyway, four more minutes.
Right? So, there's a school of thought that says you take those 40 different thoughts and then you help to shape what your view is. Or the next potential option is that.
Wait. So, let me get the first one you're right. So, the AG say the first option is you do an actual democracy where after you get the report, you go and you talk to the people and you kind of hear what their opinions are. You know that thing? Democracy. So we actually do that so that you could be worth the extra what I'll just get in pay. We do that. He said that this is an option, but it's kind of difficult. And one of the issues that he say you have is because you might have 40 different opinions. Now, I want you to understand again, 40 different opinions does not mean 40 unique opinions. That just means 40 different people talk. If half of them say no, they don't want to road deal, that's a one opinion. It's just that 20 people say the same thing. These are deflections, and once again, modern society. This thing could be available digitally. See, another way to do this, Mr. AG, is you upload it and see if we download it, see if we are interested. But there should be an avenue for us to explore it.
The Prime Minister or the Premier, could be either one, takes technical advice from different areas of government or different MPs in cabinet who represent the people in different constituencies and reflect their views. Because someone in Newcastle might have a different view about revenue allocation to someone in Gingerland. True. Two different constituencies.
And we heard the Honorable Matt Brantley say that.
Just to correct the AG, it's not Newcastle. If you're in Birmingham and you're heading north, it's Newcastle. But in a Nevis, a castle, and any no Newcastle is just Castle Abiago. You may proceed.
The World Bank report, he don't know much about it because he was not consulted, he was not a part of it. And, so he thinks that there should be consultation in order to make Nevis' position well known and to bring about a fair share arrangement.
Yes, but the World Bank report was solicited by the Prime Minister.
Right.
As I said, there are different ways you could eat a mango. Some people bite the end and suck out all the juice. Some people slice each side, eat the meat, and then eat the seed with meat on it. Mm-hmm. There are different ways. But think about if every single decision had to go to a town hall, then nothing will get done. At the end of the day, people...
I am going to push back on this idea every single time. Nobody is asking for no town hall. We want the report. I could keep as much town hall as I want after that. But even the town hall without the report does not do much for us. If we get the report, after that, keep the town hall, because we know we're in there. We will come with the proper questions to ask at these hypothetical town halls, should they happen. But ain't gonna be of any utility unless we have the report. It's similar to what the Premier just did. We didn't have the airport reports and stuff before the first town hall. so you don't know what you're gonna say. I will not only support you in the AG should have answered that question if the report should be made public. He should have made sure the Prime Minister presented it in Parliament. And Mark should have as well. Well, I want you to realize that nearly about 3 minutes gone, and up to now, the AG has not told us his opinion. In his brain is an intelligent man. Up to now, he can't say, yeah or nay. It's difficult. And all of these opinions and all kind of story, Mr. AG, it should be reported. I would love you to address the land sale for 1/6 of Nevis. Another show, not tonight. Oh, I heard about that thing, but I have not had the legislation in my hand yet to see what is taking place.
You go to the foundation of our democracy. People in different constituencies elect a leader to make decisions on their behalf and represent.
See, now is almost everything I up. How you gonna be here talking about foundation of democracy and you are not upholding provisions in the Constitution, sir? But you suit fit good.
And their interests in Parliament and sometimes Cabinet.
So what happens now with this World Bank report? Is it going to be... I know you don't
I
want
don't
to
know.
go into the...
I don't know, Juney.
You're going to leave it to the Prime Minister
Yes.
to say what happened.
Here again, this is where I want to say that I have been proud of some of the journalists I've seen in the Nevis press conferences. I would encourage more of you to do research before you go to the press conference. Reach out if you want to, but definitely build as many sources as possible and be prepared to have these pushback, follow-up questions and not bail out these people. Your responsibility as a journalist is to ask the right questions so that the people are informed. And y'all are playing a critical role. Well, let me say, as the AG say, for the foundations of a healthy democracy. So, in as many ways as possible, when you don't know about a particular subject area, I also feel like there is something where more this needs to be done, where conversations are broken down, reviewed and stopped so that people could be more informed about what's going on. But anyway, we got 2 more minutes.
The leaders will decide what will happen. But it is clear, the facts are clear. The Prime Minister has said publicly that he has solicited the report from an independent third party.
Correct.
Because we have not resolved this issue, we have not abided by 110 of the Constitution. Let us resolve it once and for all.
I would like to point out that the report from the World Bank, although much more expensive than the Charlestown Accord, is about as valuable as the Charlestown Accord unless acted upon. So there is not necessarily any... We might soon reach a stage where you hear people say that they're wiping things with this report. That's all I'm saying. But until it's acted upon, this report is a longer version, a more detailed version, a more well thought out and researched version of the Charlestown Accord, and also more expensive. But it's not like it's of any more utility than the Charlestown Accord at this point, until acted upon.
It has been delivered to the Premier. The Premier has said publicly he has had it, and he is reviewing it internally with his Cabinet. At some point, there is going to be, the public is going to be aware. I don't know if we'll be aware of all the various options that they gave, or I don't know. I'm not a politician in that respect. I consider myself a technocrat.
This is also very dangerous. Going forward, the AG just said that he's not a politician. I think that the correct thing to say, Mr. AG, I mean, but also beyond that, just like how the Constitution is political, Mr. AG, I've never seen you go to any neutral position to sit in Parliament. You always sit with the party in power. You are a representative of the Labour Party. There is no mistake about it. You're red. So we don't play no games about this. You ain't even in a position of the DPP, where you would have had to do some kind of real work and been independent for real. You're red. That's how the mechanism goes. The AG is a part of the cabinet, so please. So you are unelected. We will work with that. That is fair. But it is also very ignorant of you. You must be cognizant of the fact that you are political. You are a political creature. You are a political servant of the Labour Party. And we can't make no mistakes about this. Why are we playing games with words? There's no call for that. If you want to express you are naive and this is the road that you are wanting to go down with your politics, well then do that. But I think that competence would serve you a lot better to just be generally competent rather than this naive thing of you are a technocrat. You're unelected, but you're definitely political, sir, with no doubt about it.
The leaders of the NIA and the federal government will figure out the best way to ensure that nobody feels slighted by the process.
We do in fact have fair share.
Yes, and well, revenue allocation pursuant to our supreme law.
I see. 110.
110.
Okay. I'm learning a lot.
And an order. And that fair share will result, and I also disagree with somebody, let's go into Parliament. You don't have to do that. The Constitution says what you do.
I see.
The Constitution says you prepare.
And ladies and gentlemen, all of that, I love that we come full circle. And the AG is saying exactly what I'm saying. The Constitution already says what we should do in these circumstances. What I would like the AG to do is when it was time to defend why the ministers should get a pay raise, I think he did it adequately. I supported you then, sir. Now you are aware that there are parts of the Constitution that are not being adhered to. And it is your responsibility as the AG, as a man of honor, as a man with backbone, with spine, with cojones, with guts, to stand up now and to find a way for us to actually uphold these things so that when we say that the Constitution is the supreme law of St. Christopher and Nevis, there is a meaning behind it. And when you are given the title of honorable, there is something that could attach to it. And should you bring up these things, because one thing I would like to point out is only 45 seconds we have it. You hear me as just a regular citizen stressing these things. You have not heard the AG speak about why these are failures and why these failures are affecting you and how these things need to be done. He's throwing his hands up in the air, and this is why I say I agree with him on the fundamentals. The AG knows what needs to be done, but he just sits here and suck him in and put on the glasses and I mean, he suit fit better than one the Nevis politician one, and do you think in that manner? But what about the more glory things that we speak about? When we speak about the foundations of democracy, wouldn't adhering to the Constitution be one of them foundations? Rule of law and that type of thing, Mr. AG. So as a man of honor, man, let's get these things done. And I'm putting it on the AG because, I mean, he's here with Juney and he represents the legal side. But all ministers, particularly I've heard the Premier speak about things that are not adhered to in the Constitution. Mr. Premier, as a man of honor, why would you continue to live in a state of dishonor? But anyway, we are 45 more seconds.
Your order, the Prime Minister and the Premier, not the Federal Parliament and the NIA.
I got you.
The Prime Minister and the Premier submit an order of revenue allocation specifying what are the common services, like what I read out earlier, and the proportion and so forth, and it is published, and it becomes the fair share revenue allocation for that particular point in St. Kitts and Nevis federal history. And it can be changed if there's a change in St. Kitts or a change in Nevis, and the persons who hold the office of Premier and Prime Minister change
the dynamics.
Then they could come back and say, I don't agree with this fair share order. Let's
put our own in.
Exactly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the end before they started to take callers, and I need to hear the taking callers because that is not relevant to the discussion. We have already went through all of what I think are the relevant parts. I am still down here stuck with my mouth open. But as I said, as long as I could hear me, then we do not have any issues. I hope y'all have been enlightened about the fair share. I did say I should read the oath. Maybe I should read the oath before we leave, the oath of office. But I hope that you have been enlightened on fair share. Here's the oath of office. I, Garth Williams, do swear. Are Williams in here? No, Wilkin. I don't even remember. I, Garth Williams, do swear or affirm, if depending on your religious belief, that I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis and the law. And I will conscientiously, impartially, and to the best of my ability discharge my duties as Attorney General and do right in all manner of people without fear or favor. I preach them and I preach when it comes to these oath of office. So I would ask all of the politicians to remember this oath of office and to do something. To finally, let's get the Constitution. Let's adhere to all of the laws and consider what I'm saying about the third chamber or another chamber. Because maybe you guys are overwhelmed. But in any event, good night to everybody. If y'all have anything, Gigi, you say you would like to hear about the sustainability zone authorization. I want to hear about that too. So if y'all have anything else, y'all put it in the comments of anything that you feel like is interesting or anything that is vague and you would like to get some clarity on for any further show. But good night and see you later. When Dahlia tell me she want another show.
Like it's that you was me instead. Ay, I wanted to rock with you, roll with you. Said you was my baby girl, then you left me too. Everything was kosher, perfect like a poster. Then I got word that you wanna lead a picture. Off with somebody else, off with the jerk. With the shame on me, I really thought that it could work. Off with somebody else, off with the loser. Shame on me, I really thought we had a. Lately I be having conversations with myself, cause I feel like I have nobody to talk to. I be having conversations